In 1974, after being a sixth grade school teacher, I was introduced to the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in the U.S., the father of rocketry. In my first meeting with him, during that first 3.5 hours, he said to me, "Carol, you will stop the weaponization of space." And I said, teachers don't stop until June. He said, "No, you have to understand, this is February. And we have to prevent the weaponization of space because there is a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies," he said, "against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system, the first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids." And then he would repeat to me over and over, "And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat." We have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars on a space-based weapon system, and they're all lies. He said, "You will find that there is going to be a spin to find some enemy against whom we have to build space-based weapons, and now we should expect the spin," because he said part of the formula for the intelligence community is if they might have a weapon, then we have to consider that they do have these weapons. So now they do have these weapons, so now we have to build these weapon systems. And that's the formula, except that it's all based on a lie.
Because space is the world's newest warfighting domain. Amid grave threats to our national security, American superiority in space is absolutely vital. And we're leading, but we're not leading by enough, but very shortly we'll be leading by a lot. The Space Force will help us deter aggression and control the ultimate high ground. That's a big day.
Can somebody explain the logo? General Raymond? So the Delta in the middle is a symbol that the space community has used for years and years and years.
We know that our adversaries in the last several years have weaponized space. They've made it a warfighting domain. And so with the establishment of Space Force and the establishment of Space Command, the United States is now doing what it needs to do to protect our assets in space and to ensure that space remains the heavens by which we not only protect America, but we sustain our economy, we sustain our commercial capabilities, we sustain Americans' way of life.
We don't know what the hell these drones are in New Jersey are. Is that correct? That's right. It's crazy. I mean, that's crazy. That's madness that we don't know what these drones are.
At the end of the day, in New Jersey, we've seen hundreds of these reports from multiple counties and from sources that are pretty well trained. I do believe that there needs more federal resources. And in order to do that, I think a state of emergency would help that out, and at least urge the FAA to do some type of TFR over some impacted counties where we're seeing the high number. And also would allow for activation of our own Air National Guard here to do some patrol and observation.
It was August 1835 that launched the most imaginative moon hoax of them all, and it was this time, when the world looked up at the moon, they saw an entirely new lunar landscape that would change humanity as we know it.
The New York Sun published a series of 6 articles claiming that life had been discovered on the moon. Life including unicorns and beavers that walked on their hind legs. The crowning touch of it was the discovery of the so-called man bats. The Vespertilio homo was supposedly the Latin name. These remarkable 4-foot-tall creatures who flew and talked and built temples and did art and apparently fornicated in public. It was reprinted in rival newspapers. By some estimates, 90% of the people in New York City believed it. And by the time that the hoax was over, the New York Sun was the most widely read newspaper in the world.
But it turns out Sir John Herschel did not make these astronomical discoveries, nor were they reprinted from the Edinburgh Journal of Science. The two key players behind these fabricated lunar discoveries were New York Sun's publisher Benjamin Day and New York Sun's editor Richard Adams Locke.
The astronomers of the time were religious astronomers, and the general belief among the astronomers was that all of the heavenly bodies were populated because God would not have created these worlds without also creating intelligent beings there to appreciate them.
And one of the popular astronomers was Thomas Dick. He was the Carl Sagan, Neil deGrasse Tyson of the day, and he believed there was a population on the moon of over 4 billion creatures.
The people of New York, and subsequently of America generally, had been so schooled in the ideas of these religious astronomers that when these articles came out, they simply believed them. They simply believed that they were true because it was so much like what they had already been reading.